So we will begin then with opening statements, and again we're going to proceed alphabetically. So Mr. Blackman will go first, followed by Mr. Cooper, followed by Mr. Turner. Mr. Blackman, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Scribner. I want to thank you for moderating tonight's forum. I also want to thank everyone here for attending tonight's forum to get to know the candidates a little bit better. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Barry Blackman. I'm a lifetime resident of Walla Walla County. I was born in Walla Walla. My family moved to College Place when I was very young, and I attended school there until about the 4th grade. 5th grade, I went to Walla Walla, and we moved to Walla Walla. And I attended Jefferson Elementary School. Some of you may remember Jefferson. It was on the same little piece of property where Hastings now sits. After Jefferson School, I attended Garrison Middle School and then went to Walla Walla High School for just a little over a year. And I started kind of losing direction. When I was 17, I had an opportunity to enlist in the Marine Corps. And so I actually dropped out of high school, enlisted in the Marine Corps. And about 1 year later, I obtained my GED while I was in the Marine Corps. When I was in the Marine Corps, I attained the rank of sergeant. I was an avionics technician. I learned all about the aircraft electrical systems, what made the aerial refueling portions of the airplane work, and how aerial refueling works. I excelled at that. I was a collateral duty inspector. I was a supervisor of a crew of about 10 Marines, and I left the Marine Corps about 4 years later when the funding for the services kind of seemed to dry up, and when I came back to Walla Walla. My ambition at that time was to remain in a technical field, and jobs were scarce in 1982, and the Walla Walla County advertised openings for what was then the brand new county jail. I answered that ad and was selected the #1 candidate for hire. Out of the 14 that were hired, I was hired the first one hired, and I attended the Corrections Academy shortly after that, and I stayed at the county jail for 9 years. I was promoted to sergeant when I had been there for 4 years, and in 1991 I moved out to patrol. I was on patrol for about 5 years, 6 years before I was promoted to sergeant on patrol. And I served time in the detective's office and participated in several very lengthy investigations. My philosophy as far as leadership is leadership by example. Guys that work for me all know that I've done the job. They've seen me do the job. They've been out there with me doing the job. And many of them look up to me and have come to me for advice. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Tom Cooper. I'm a candidate for County Sheriff, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I was born and raised in Everett, Washington. I moved to Walla Walla in 1982 after accepting an athletic scholarship at the Walla Walla Community College. That's where I met my wife in 1983. We were married at St. Patrick's Church in '84, and this June 16th we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. We have 3 children. My oldest, Gina, went to the Catholic schools in Walla Walla. She then went to Gonzaga, graduated from Gonzaga. She currently works for the Department of Corrections. My middle daughter, Lindley, also went to school in Spokane. She is employee of Banner Bank, and she's a business and finance major. And my youngest, my son, is really my pride and joy. Everything about my son that I wish I could have been, he is. He is a Walla Walla Community College attendee, and he has aspirations of going to Gonzaga as well and going to law school. So, my wife and I, Jenny, raised and educated our children in this community. I care deeply about Walla Walla. I'm passionate about law enforcement, and that's why I'm running for sheriff. I've been a member of the sheriff's office for 25 years, first as a correctional officer, and then supervisor, then as a deputy sheriff and patrol sergeant. I will defer to you, our county citizens, but I believe the following Washington State training and certifications, along with Walla Walla County law enforcement experience, uniquely qualify me for the position of county sheriff. I was a certified field training officer for 12 years and then the program coordinator. The training officer is the one that takes the brand new officers from start to finish, from green to patrol ready, and trains them and really becomes their mentor their whole career. Also, I was a certified canine handler for 7 years, certified first line supervisor. I have a degree in criminology. I completed 3 Washington State Criminal Justice Training Academies and 1 International Academy for canine and advanced police tactics. I have experience managing a small business. I have been for the past 16 years a commissioned deputy's chief negotiator. I have working knowledge with the county current expense and law and justice budgets. I am the charter and current president of the local Fraternal Order Police, which is the largest police organization in Walla Walla. I'm the president also of the the Walla Walla County Commissioned Deputy Sheriff's Association for now for about 13 plus years. I'm a member at St. Pat's Church. I'm a member of Sunrise Rotary, Wagon Wheelers, and the Elks. And I guess the one thing that I want you to remember about me is that I'm a dedicated, hardworking person who really considers himself a public servant and not a politician. And I will work hard for this community if I'm given the opportunity. Thank you.
And Mr. Turner, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to be here tonight and visit with you. It's a privilege to be out here. My name is John Turner, and for the last 3.5 years I've had the privilege and the honor of being your sheriff. My family's been in this valley for 140 years. My great-grandfather homesteaded a wheat farm north of Prescott in the 1870s, and we've been here ever since. I'm 4th generation on that farm. My mom and dad took my great-grandfather's home in Los Angeles to be their home, and that's where I was born and primarily raised, but annual trips up here kept my love affair with Walla Walla strong. And I have a tremendous reverence, a tremendous respect, if you will, for the hard work and the work ethic that went into that dirt just north of here. I'm very well aware that it's that ground and that hard work that afforded me with a lot of the opportunities, all the opportunities that I've had in my lifetime, and I don't take that lightly. I had the opportunity to go to college and get a bachelor's degree in public administration with an emphasis in criminal justice, learning how to run criminal justice organizations. I was able to go to grad school and go to the Delinquency Control Institute where I studied juvenile justice issues. And I had the opportunity to go to law school and get a doctorate degree in law. And I know that these things came from right around here from a lot of hard work, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. I've been very blessed in my life to have careers and jobs that I very much enjoyed. I had a career with the Los Angeles Police Department where I worked a number of different assignments. I was a field training officer, I worked patrol, I worked undercover, I worked a gang unit in Watts for a number of years. I worked the administrative side of law enforcement, the representative side of law enforcement, and really enjoyed my career there before I retired. When I retired, I became a police attorney, and my sole practice was the representation of law enforcement all over. We represented about 80 different law enforcement agencies. So I've seen things that work, and I've seen things that didn't work so good. But I bring all that experience to the table. I met my wife Jackie when she was in the 7th grade at Garrison Middle School here in Walla Walla, and I was in the 8th grade. And we moved home 10 years ago to be around all of her family and all of my family that's here. We're very vested in this community. And it was during that time that I was recruited for a Department of Defense program. It came out of left field, but I was really privileged and honored to be considered for it. I trained in Virginia and I trained at Fort Benning, Georgia before deploying with Army combat units in Iraq for 2008 and 2009 as a counterterrorism investigator and a rule of law advisor to Army combat leaders. That was a really terrific experience, and where I thought I was headed, and when I came home from that journey, that's when my predecessor, Mike Humphreys, had announced his retirement, and I got a lot of public support here from people in town that I knew to run for sheriff, and that happened in 2010, and it has just been an absolute blessing and privilege, and I look forward to sharing with you all the accomplishments throughout the last 3.5 years. There have been many, and it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Assuming we sometimes never advance beyond our kindergarten years, do you play well with others? As the sheriff of Walla County, is it important that you play well with others? Who are those others with whom you should play well? And how have you played or would you play well with them? Starting with you, Mr. Cooper.
Well, I like to think I play well with others. I guess that's for others to actually decide. But I think as a good example, my affiliations with police organizations really shows that at least the people that I work with and my peers have chosen me to kind of be their representative and their leader. As I stated, the Fraternal Order of Police is the largest police organization in Walla Walla County, and I was the charter president of that organization. But I'm just as proud, if not more proud, of being the president of the Commissioned Deputies for as long as I have, because we've really joined together and had battles and won and lost and just done the best that we could. As far as working well with others, we need to work well with everyone. That's just a given. Everyone from the county commissioners to the other elected officials to other agencies. We need to build trust. We need to keep our word, and we need to move forward and make sure that when we say something, that we follow through on that. So, that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Turner.
Thank you. Working with others has been one of my most favorite parts of this job in the last 3.5 years. We have accomplished a tremendous amount. We've established 24/7 patrol coverage with the help of the deputies, getting new deployment schedules and working new shifts, and that's worked really well. There's periods of time now where we deter crime and we can respond to emergencies where that wasn't the case in the past. With the help of the Sheriff's Foundation, we stood up a 501c3 citizen-led, citizen-driven organization with the help of the community, and they raised enough money for us to buy 2 patrol canines at no taxpayer expense. And those patrol canines are out on the road today protecting and serving, and numerous felony fines have been attributed to those 2 teams. They do a wonderful job for us. I've partnered with the police department a couple of years ago when Chuck Fulton was the police chief, and now continued with Scott Bieber to form the Walla Walla Valley Strategic Gang Initiative. And it is a program where we concentrate on prevention and intervention of gangs just as much as we concentrate on strong zero-tolerance enforcement. We spend a lot of time with different organizations like the Youth Alliance and the Walla Walla Investors Group, and Fight Crime, Invest in Kids, and teachers and schools and parents and all the different social service agencies are partners in this strategic organization. And I know in my heart that once this gets up and running, it's going to be a game changer in our community as far as our criminal gang activity. I've established quarterly Sheriff's Roundtable meetings, as you know, because every quarter I'm out here at Touchet School, and it provides me an opportunity to get into the community and get informed. It's impossible to make informed decisions if you're not informed, and I strongly believe that that's my job, to come out to you and communicate with you as opposed to sitting at a desk and waiting for you to come to me. And I've done that. We hold quarterly Sheriff's Roundtables, 4 of them every quarter across this community, and built strong bonds with all the different communities from Burbank to the top of the Blues to the Lions Ferry down to the state line. It's been very good, resulting in a significant reduction in crime for 2013 and continuing good relationships.
Thank you. Mr. Blackman. Play well with others, and who are they and how would you do it?
Well, I like to think I play well with others because most people I work around and work with play well with me. I am currently assigned as a patrol sergeant, so I have 4 deputies who work underneath me, and I supervise them. I also have to work closely with the sergeants on the other 3 squads to make sure that crimes that are being investigated by more than 1 deputy are, there's some continuity in that investigation. I've also been a member of, we at one time had a very successful interdepartmental collision investigation team that was consisted of officers, well, myself from the Sheriff's Office, and there was a couple officers from the Walla Walla Police Department, and then there were some state patrolmen that were involved in that. Currently we have a young deputy, Jared Martin, who's trying to get that same thing started again. So learning to work with others and appreciating other points of view really comes paramount when you're doing a collision investigation, because it's just amazing how many different theories you can have for evidence that you find at a scene like that. That also holds true at almost any other investigation when you're going through what you're finding and what you think it means, and you're bouncing those ideas off of others and not ridiculing their conclusions, but rather taking their conclusions into consideration to decide if that's correct. If I'm elected sheriff, I'll continue to hold that philosophy of being a good listener and being a good contributor as well.
Thank you. Why do you want to be our county sheriff? What is your agenda, and what do you want to do or achieve as the county sheriff? Mr. Turner, then Mr. Blackman, then Mr. Cooper.
Well, I want to be county sheriff for the same reasons that I did 4 years ago, and that's to protect and to preserve Walla Walla County and our quality of life. This is a beautiful place with wonderful people, and it's my intent to keep it that way. To do that is a very strategic plan. It doesn't just happen. If you take a look at the crime rate from 2012 to 2013, based on new crime strategies and deployment strategies, we were able to drop crime almost 20%, 19.7% for all felonies in Walla Walla County. That's significant. That's a lot of great work by a lot of great people that did a really good job last year. And that takes a coordinated effort. You know, I've developed wonderful relationships across the state. Every sheriff in Washington State endorses me for another term. And that's because of the relationships that we've built and the accomplishments that we've made here. I was very honored when peer sheriffs across the state nominated me for the National Sheriff's Association National Sheriff of the Year Award, and I received earlier this year the National Sheriff's Association Award National Medal of Merit for accomplishments right here in our county. I think that the constants that we face in the office every day are gangs and drugs. Those two things affect people in life-changing ways all the time, and we see those over and over again in the sheriff's office. And strong policies and strong enforcement, as well as partnering, like I said before, with other entities for strong prevention and intervention is really important. And that's one of my strategic goals moving forward, is to continue that effort. Well, we've done a really good job in the last 3 years. Every year we've been under budget. We've returned over $430,000 taxpayer dollars over the last 3 years. I think that we've done a good job of improving technology, improving equipment, improving deputy morale, and keeping them safer so that they can go out and do a better job of keeping you safer. And to do it has really been an honor and a privilege. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Every day I feel very blessed being your sheriff.
Mr. Blackman, why do you want to be sheriff? What's your agenda? What will you do to achieve your goals?
I want to be sheriff because this is a county that I love. I love working for the sheriff's office. I love the job that I do, and I love the folks that I work with. I work with a great bunch of deputies who all have the same desires, the same passions as I have. And I think I work with some of the sheriffs of the future right as we speak. My agenda is to bring a sense of stability back to the sheriff's office that I think is missing right now. We have a number of deputies who are constantly, unhappy about some of these shifting that we're working. These 12-hour shifts are very demanding. Even though they may have more days off during the month, those days off aren't necessarily the ones that they need in order to spend time with their families. Some of these deputies are working the night half of the shifts, and that constitutes working 12 hours from the time you start in the afternoon till the morning at that particular hour, and that can be very taxing. Right around the 9th or 10th hour of that shift, a lot of these guys have complained of nodding off and dozing off behind the wheel of their car, and that's unsafe. As far as what I want to accomplish, I want to bring the confidence of the deputies back to the leadership of the sheriff's office, and I want to have the confidence of the community back in the sheriff's office.
Mr. Cooper, same question.
Thank you. Well, I care about this community deeply, and I said that earlier. I'm passionate about law enforcement, and quite frankly, I think we need a change. I think the things that Sheriff Turner just said, most of them are talking points, and I don't think they're entirely accurate. Things about giving money back and not overspending the budget, it's not an accurate statement. They gave money back after the initial budget was completely wiped out, and they completely wiped the budget out at the end of the year with frivolous spending over and over and over again. Just recently, we spent $16,000 on a non-law enforcement training event that I can't understand why in the world we would spend taxpayers' dollars like that, just like $30,000 for rifle scopes, just like $1,500 for stocking caps. My agenda is to be fiscally responsible, period. To provide the best law enforcement service that I can by doing a number of different things. And the first one that I want to do is I want to modify, not eliminate, but modify these 12-hour shifts because they're dangerous. Our guys go from night shift to day shift every 8 weeks. So think about whatever job you have, and then somebody telling you in 8 weeks you're going to work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and then 8 weeks later you're going to flip-flop back again. Our deputies are tired, their morale is low, and we can do a much better job by the way that we staff our shifts by putting some power shifts in, or at least not flip-flopping back every 8 weeks and maybe turning that into a quarterly process. Second thing is I want to make sure that I put together a command staff. You're as good as the people you surround yourself with. And I will put together a command staff that is Washington State trained people that are from this community, this area. We've got talented people that we can do that with. We had a promise last time that the sheriff wasn't going to bring in a whole bunch of people from California. Guess what happened? Retirement jobs for Friends. It will not happen under my administration. We're going to restore trust. We're going to work hard on the budget, but we're going to get some bilingual officers. Why in the world, with all the gang troubles that we're having, do we not have bilingual officers that can communicate to our victims, to our suspects, and to our witnesses? We have nobody. So I don't know why that hasn't happened, but in my administration, it would be a huge priority. I'm going to put together a reserve deputy program, which is a program that we can do without using a ton of taxpayer money, but we can kind of foster maybe the bilingual Hispanic officers through that reserve program. Overall, we're going to build trust. We're going to get it back with the commissioners. They don't trust our office right now. I don't blame them in some cases. And we are going to do a much better job with other county entities and the public in general, because I think we deserve better, and that's the truth.
The next question will be answered first by Mr. Blackman, followed by Mr. Cooper, and last by Mr. Turner. This is a question from an audience member, and it is, what, in your opinion, is the biggest issue facing the Sheriff's Office over the next 4 years? And if elected, how would you address that issue? Starting with you, Mr. Blackman. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I think the biggest issue facing the Sheriff's Office in the next 4 years is kind of summed up in Sergeant Cooper's response to the last question. The second half of that is getting an ability to communicate with our Hispanic culture, our Hispanic citizens in this county. We're nearly 30% Hispanic in Walla Walla County, I believe, and we don't have anybody who speaks Spanish immediately available when we need that kind of translation. We're often stuck with trying to get a relative or even a child to help translate information back and forth so that we can try and figure out what's going on and whether or not it's time to call somebody in that has some expertise. As far as the Sheriff's Office itself goes, I want the trust of the deputies to come back to the Sheriff's Office. I think I said that in my last question, but I can't emphasize that point enough. We have a number of guys that are really on the fence on whether or not they're going to remain in that office for the next 4 years. And so I just urge everyone here to really look at the candidates and maybe talk to some of the deputies one-on-one and get their idea of what's going on. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, same question.
I think it's first and foremost, it's staying in front of crime. And it's realizing that we've got to be fiscally responsible so that we can continue to provide the level of service that we need to in the county. We need to make sure that we can maintain service by going and implementing a planning strategy, a 1, 3, and a 5-year plan that will keep us ahead of crime and keep us doing the things that are going to keep our public safe. I just think that our resources to budget ratio is the #1 issue. And like I said, and Barry reiterated, you know, with nearly 25% or 20% going toward 25% of our Hispanic population growing all the time, and the projections, you know, being even, you know, further than that in the coming years, we've got to be able to communicate with our Hispanic group and our Hispanic community, and I think we can do a much better job of doing that.
Mr. Turner, same question.
Well, obviously, as a chief law enforcement officer, public safety and maintaining your safety is the utmost importance. And I know for a fact that we've done a good job for that, because when you look at the numbers last year, we reduced crime, major felonies across the county almost 20%. And as you know, crime will ebb and flow over the years, but when you hit double digits, particularly 20%, that's from strategizing and a lot of hard work. The bottom line is what we're doing is working. The second most important thing is the resources, the people that work at the sheriff's office, to make life as good for them so they can go out and make life as good for you as humanly possible. You know, Mr. Cooper just stated some really strong things, but when you start peeling back the layers of the onion, you realize that what he just said is not accurate. Let me explain. You talk about Spanish-speaking deputies. Well, here's the reality. We just hired a Spanish-speaking receptionist for walk-ins and phone calls. She's a humongous help to us. We recently hired 2 Hispanic corrections officers, Mr. Perez and Mr. Diaz. We have a Spanish-speaking reserve deputy available by phone all the time. Dispatch contracts with the language line, that's available to deputies 24/7 in the field all the time. We have great relationships with the Civil Service Commission, and we've recruited Hispanic applicants really hard. No matter who sits in this seat, you can't wave a magic wand and create a qualified Hispanic candidate. And during my tenure, we haven't had one that passed the background, the physical, the polygraph, the psychological test. We've had people apply, but no one has passed the law enforcement standards for this state. And that's unfortunate, but that's just a fact. Then we talked about spending money in the county budget and rolling it over and wiping out budgets. That's just not true. You look at the county auditor's website and her report to the state auditor's office, the numbers are there. You can research them yourself. If you add up the number of dollars that we've given back over the last 3 years without any additional budgets, it totals over $430,000 of your money going back to the county commissioners to be used in other ways. And we've accomplished a lot during that time. We talked about scopes and winter caps that he wouldn't provide our deputies. Really? You're not going to provide a scope or a winter cap? You'd rather have the guy out there freezing? I don't understand that type of logic. My command staff are Washington State certified peace officers. Yes, they have experience elsewhere, but I wonder if my opponent refuses service from emergency room doctors based on where they're from, or does he simply want the best service and quality service possible for his family? And what time? Thank you.
We'll have one more question. If we were to talk with one of your best friends, what would he or she tell us about you? And if we were to talk with one of your most bitter enemies, what would he or she tell us about you?
I have been so blessed with so many good friends, social and work throughout my life. Sometimes I pinch myself at the quality and caliber of people that are on my re-election committee. You know, Judge Schott, Chief Fulton, Gay Ernst, the former Director of Emergency Management, Margaret Schott, the former JJC Director and the retired Director of Human Services. You can go to my website, it goes on and on and on. Those people will tell you what a dedicated, quality individual I am. I'm honest, I'm loyal to maybe a fault, but I work hard, and it's because I care. I truly care. You can talk to any of the deputies and they can tell you that I'm there much more than 40 hours a week for their benefit, for your benefit. And the proof is in the pudding. It's working. Again, there's so much to share with you about good. There's not enough time in 2 minutes. I encourage you to go to the website, reelectjohnturner.com, and read the truth and the facts and look at the evidence there about all the good work that the men and the women at your sheriff's office are doing. The picture that's been painted up here, quite frankly, isn't accurate. 12-hour shifts. Let's look at where that came from. The deputies approached the best way to accomplish those goals. And overwhelmingly, every survey comes back, I've got them right here, yes, that's what we want, don't take that from us, it's good. And the proof is in the pudding. The contract's on the website, the sheriff's office website. You can read the clause that says they can come to me at any time and say, this isn't working. But the fact is they haven't, because they enjoy it, they like it, it is working. The goal is 24/7 coverage to this county that they've never had before. Don't get confused on the 12-hour shifts. I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't care if they work 8, 10, 12s. We do it together as a team, but the deputies team has told me that's what they want. I'm more than willing to change it if they come to me and want to change it. That's not the issue.
Mr. Blackman, same question.
Can I hear the question again, please?
Yeah, if we talk to your best friend, what would he or she tell us about you? And if we talk to your most bitter enemy, what would he or she tell us about you?
Okay, I'll try to answer that question. I think my best friend would tell you that I'm a trustworthy person who is always willing to help, a person who appreciates any help that I get, and a person who likes to set an example for people around me. I think my worst, bitterest enemy would say that I was fair with them, that I took time to listen to them, and that I just flat out disagreed with them. I pride myself on treating people the way I'd like to be treated if I were in their shoes. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, best friend, tell us what. Bitterest enemy, tell us what.
Well, I'd like to think that they would both say the same thing, and that's that when I look at them in the eye and when I have a conversation with them, they can trust what I say. They may not agree with it. They may have a totally different perspective, but they know that when we have that conversation and then when we part company, that I'm going to represent that conversation the way I did to their face that I would when they were no longer in the room. And that's about all I'll say.
Thank you, gentlemen. Closing statements then. You will each have 2 minutes to summarize, rebut, critique.
Okay, well, I don't want to volley back and forth with the sheriff, but I'm going to anyways. It's about leadership. It's not what the deputies want. It's not what I want. It's not what, it's what is best for the community. 24/7 coverage, that's another huge talking point. 24/7 coverage. Well, guess what we had before? Before, we utilized our resources better during peak crime hours. So let's say from 9 or 10 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the morning, when there was lots of fighting, lots of drinking, lots of carousing, we had many more people on staff to be able to address these issues. Now, often, 90% of the time, in one of the deployment periods, 3 people covering 1,300 square miles. It's not safe. It's not the right way to do it. I'm not going to base what I decide on as sheriff on what the deputies want. I'm going to work with the deputies. I'm going to work with the county commissioners. I'm going to work with the sergeants. I'm going to work with my command staff. But that's really what leadership is all about. And that's really what I intend to do and intend to provide. So a lot of talking points. I would encourage you to go to the sheriff's website because it's about the most toxic, nastiest thing that I've ever seen. You can see all kinds of personal information about me, about Sergeant Blackman, and I think it's unfortunate that that's the kind of leadership that quite frankly, the sheriff is providing. I will do my best. You might not like what I say. You might not like what I say, but guess what? It'll be the truth. It'll be honest. It won't have spin. It won't tell you that I turned back a whole bunch of money that was extra and in excess of what I was given. I will be an honest man, a sheriff you can trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turner, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I don't disagree with the leadership part and the sheriff you can trust part, and that's exactly what I've been for the last 3 years. The misperception that's been portrayed up here is most unfortunate. There's been only one budget amendment in 3 years. It was for $100,000 for inmate medical expenses, and it was returned when I renegotiated the contract with St. Mary's Hospital for 50% of what we were paying. Yes, we do now work as teams. We back each other up, we go out as a team, and we come back into the station and go home as a team. That isn't the way that it used to be. There didn't used to be roll calls. There didn't used to be roll call training. There didn't used to be training days where we trained together. We had deputies with 7 and 8 years on that had never trained with their teammates. We do those things now because of leadership and because of teamwork and listening to them and forming committees and talking with them. They don't run the show, as was insinuated. The buck stops with me. But you look at the crime stats, you look at what's occurring, and we're doing it. The proof is in the pudding. And the way, Tom talked about the way it used to be. Yes, one deputy used to start, and then a second deputy would come on, and then a whole bunch of them worked in the middle of the day, and then towards the evening and late night hours, it got down to where only one deputy was on. And it was usually one of the youngest, most inexperienced guys covering 1,300 square miles all by himself. And he was handling emergency calls for himself. Not on my watch. That's not going to happen. Lives are too important. We do things as a team now. Do I wish we had more resources? Absolutely. Are we going to continue to try to do the best that we can? Absolutely. Would a power shift be great? Absolutely. But when you're the guy in the seat trying to make the matrix and you have finite resources, we only have 20 patrol deputies. We run 4 patrol squads with 5 deputies per squad. And oftentimes we have 5 guys out, and sometimes somebody calls in sick or is on a holiday, and we do only have 3 or 4. And that's unfortunate. But the pie is finite, and there's only so many ways you can cut it. I had so many citizens come up and tell me that calling dispatch at the middle of the night when they had an emergency and dispatch telling them, I'm sorry, no one's on duty, wasn't acceptable. I listened to you, and we made changes that worked for a 2013 19.7% reduction in crime. It's been a complete honor and privilege to be your sheriff, and you can trust me, and things are working, and morale is good, and it is fun working at the sheriff's office. And I love it, and I know that the other people that work there with me do too. Thank you.
Mr. Blackman, you have 2 minutes.
I sometimes wonder if we're working at the same office. I must be missing all these memos, these surveys that are going out to deputies asking what can be changed and what could be improved, because I haven't seen a survey for a couple of years that I could think of. As far as the coverage on the old shifts, we often had 2 or 3 guys all the way up until about 3 or 4 in the morning, and then yes, it would taper down to 2 or 1. But that deputy had the latitude and the ability to call for help if it was needed. Right now, what citizens are hearing at midnight when they call for a deputy is, sorry, the deputies are tied up on an incident in Waitsburg, or sorry, the deputies are both in Touchet for a problem in Touchet. So it hasn't changed as far as availability. The only thing that's changed is the guy that you get might be a guy who's just finished his 10th hour on duty. And now you're getting this guy who's been dragging on for 10 hours, and he may not be at his sharpest. He may not give you the best service that he can because he's tired. And so, the representation that having 5 guys on is very misleading, because if you look at the amount of vacation time that deputies have to use, training days that they have to use, sick days that they might be using, and you calculate all that out, you'll find out that most days, at least one of those deputies on that 5 squad deputy should be off. Otherwise, it doesn't add up. And so you're going to usually have 4. And then if somebody bangs in 6, you got 3. So as far as the safety aspect goes, I don't agree at all. I think the shifting can be done a little bit better if we change it around just a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Blackman. The question has been asked, and I'll let the audience decide if we want to give the candidates a little more time to answer maybe one more round of questions, or to have another minute or so. What's the pleasure of the audience? No. All right. Give me that mic. I want to thank Mr. Blackman, Mr. Cooper, and Mr. Turner for certainly 2 things. One, their participation in the debate this evening, but more importantly, their willingness to subject themselves to what being a candidate involves, but their willingness to be considered and to serve, if elected, as the next sheriff of Walla Walla County. I want to thank also the candidates for coroner and commissioner for their being here with us this evening. Remember, the primary is August 5. Top 2 candidates in all 3 positions will go on to the general election November 4. Thank you for the Friends of the Library for sponsoring this forum this evening. The candidates who are here, all of them I think have remained, will be here for a while. If you want to ask individual questions afterwards, please feel free to do so. Thank you all again for your attendance this evening.